marriage doesn't resonate with many as it used to before. Terms like situationships, speed dating are viral these days. And I'm not saying it. It is quite evident with data and people.
And then I go home to the cats.
No men allowed.
Men get me in trouble.
Women find their calling sometimes very late in life, but they find it. Then suddenly the marriage backfires. You have kids to look after. There are so many things then that force you to wake up.
A study showed that the rate of marriages in China has reduced from over 13 million to a 6 million between the period of 1986 and 2021. But is this problem only evident in China? After a little research, we found out that it actually isn't. The fact is that 89% of the world's population is living in countries with falling marriage rates. So we thought, why not do a deep dive study for you and see if we can determine the reasons why marriage rates are falling. As we did the research, we understood that decline in marriage rate is not just confined to data. We're living in a constantly evolving world, and not just in terms of technology but culture. And this has greatly affected the decision-making process of today's youngsters. Youngsters are clearly swiping right to choosing freedom and how they spread their finances, and allegedly swiping left to commitment, children, and the whole notion of marriage. But how prevalent is the usage of dating apps in India? So about 5 years ago, over 20 million Indians were using dating apps in India. But the number has increased since by a giant 293% and has brought the total to 82.4 million.
I have some friends that just have a woman they love and they had kids and they just didn't get married. I find them happier than those that get married.
Partner हो या best friend हो या कोई family member हो, वो दो जिसमें एक जान बनने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. You are two different individuals who come together and hopefully grow together.
As individuals, both men and women are choosing to move away from the very idea of marriage. The factors being at play: the cost of marriage, the cost of raising children, and the change in dynamics of personal life. A wedding ceremony in India will roughly cost you between 8 to 10 lakhs. But people actually didn't mind spending this much amount on weddings either. But thanks to the pandemic, that brought up the trend of intimate weddings. The whole idea of a wedding being equal to a big family festival has changed. Now, even with the absence of COVID restrictions, more and more millennials are choosing intimate weddings over the idea of a big fat Indian wedding. Apart from this, if you look at the economy, you will see that inflation is increasing. Now, this inadvertently hikes the cost of living. And most youngsters do not want to raise children knowing that they won't be able to handle the finances. Apart from this, getting married means changing the whole dynamic of how your life functions. And before committing to this, people are thinking twice. And a study showed that 1 in 2 Indians prefer to be in a live-in relationship before they go ahead and get married. But as marriage rates decline across the world, something that it is interlinked with is declining population and birth rates. Now, when we talk about birth rates, let me switch the approach and make it more holistic. It's true that marriage rates are declining across countries, but people do choose to have children outside of marriage. But you will see that the contrast is very evident due to the cultural differences across the world. Let me explain. People having children outside of marriage is at 51% in the UK, while in the EU it is at 42%, and in the US it is at 40%. But if you were to look at it from a different lens, you would see that in Asian countries, only 2.3% births are outside of marriages. Now, this is of course because of how culture affects life choices as a whole. But what conclusion do these numbers give us? Let's decode this in 3 facts. When looking at population decline, only Europe is projected to have a -7% decline in their population. Other regions are projected to grow, but the world will reach its peak of population by 2100. And did you know that below zero fertility rate has existed in many parts of the world since the 1970s? But there has been no decline in population totals, and this is because of countries experiencing net immigration. In the last few decades, migration is the only driving force of population in high-income countries. Now, worldwide, fertility rate has fallen from the average of 5 births per woman to 2.3 births per woman. The changing dynamics of the world is clearly an indication to the fact that individuals, particularly women, have control and are able to exercise rights on their reproductive health and how they control their quality of life.